I want you to picture a scenario that keeps business owners awake at night. You've just successfully navigated the chaos of global manufacturing.
Yeah, which is hard enough on its own.
Exactly. And you have this massive shipment of high-tech equipment coming from China. It's on the water, it's paid for, and you are feeling, pretty good about yourself.
Right up until it hits land.
Right. The ship docks in Hamburg.
Yeah.
And before you have sold a single unit, before you've even sent an invoice to a customer, the government puts its hand out.
The dreaded import duties
Yeah.
and the VAT.
Yes. You are suddenly bleeding cash just to move your own property from a ship to a shed. You are effectively financing the government's tax revenue weeks or maybe even months before your customer actually pays you. It's this cash flow valley of death.
It really is. And for a lot of companies, that is where the business actually fails. I mean, it's not a product problem at that point.
It's a liquidity problem.
Exactly. You run out of cash just trying to clear customs.
But, and this is why we are here today, there was a way around this. We are doing a deep dive into a specific set of source materials that outline a supply chain strategy that, well, it feels a bit like a magic trick, honestly.
It does sound like magic when you first hear about it.
Right. We are looking at a case study involving universal goods, things like equipment, spare parts, construction materials.
Mm-hmm.
And they are moving from China to Germany with the ultimate goal of distributing them across the European Union and, interestingly enough, transit into Ukraine.
Right. And the centerpiece of this entire strategy we're looking at is something called the customs warehouse, or in German, the Zollger.
Now, I know what you're thinking as a listener. Warehousing. Really? That sounds like forklifts and dust and pallets.
Yes, doesn't sound very glamorous.
No. But reading through this material, this doesn't feel like traditional logistics to me. It feels like high-level financial engineering.
That is exactly what it is. If you view a warehouse merely as a place to store boxes, you are completely missing the point.
Yeah.
In this context, the customs warehouse is a financial instrument. It is a shield against upfront costs.
But let's be clear right off the top, because phrases like shield against taxes can sound a little shady to the uninitiated.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about a legal loophole here?
Definitely not. I would hesitate to ever call it a loophole because, well, that implies you are getting away with something, right?
Right, like you found a glitch in the matrix.
Exactly. And this isn't a glitch. This is a fully sanctioned legal regime provided by the Union Customs Code. But it is complex.
Yeah.
We aren't talking about tax evasion. We are talking about a very specific legal status that allows goods to physically exist in a territory without legally existing there yet.
That right there, that is the concept I really want to unpack today. That idea of a legal nowhere.
It's fascinating.
It is. But let's start where the shipment starts. Stage A in our sources, we have our case study goods arriving at a German port. What is the immediate friction point there?
The friction is the arrival stage itself, because as soon as those goods touch the ground, the clock starts. Mm-hmm.
The customs authorities immediately want to know two things. What is this, and who is paying for it? Now, the inexperienced importer, they usually panic.
They just want to get their stuff.
Right. So they immediately try to clear customs. They pay the duty, they pay the 19% import VAT in Germany, and they get the goods released into free circulation.
And that is the exact moment they lose all their leverage. The cash is just gone.
Correct. But in our case study, the smart operators, they don't do that. They place the goods into what is called temporary storage.
Okay, I noticed the source material makes a really hard distinction between temporary storage and the customs warehouse. I think a lot of people probably use those terms interchangeably.
They do, and it's a huge mistake.
Why does that distinction matter so much?
It matters because one is a waiting room and the other is a residence.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah, temporary storage is strictly a buffer.
Hmm.
In the European Union, you have a hard, strict limit of 90 days.
90 days, so it's not a permanent solution? Not at all. It is designed to give you just enough time to get your paperwork in order, maybe inspect the cargo for damage.
Or figure out exactly what it is you imported.
Right. Verify your HS guns, your harmonized system classifications. It gives you a minute to breathe.
So it's just a pause button.
A very short pause. And it's a trap for the unwary.
Yeah.
Because if you hit day 91 and you haven't moved those goods or declared them into a new customs regime, the authorities can seize them.
Wow.
Yeah, they can sell them. In extreme cases, they can even destroy them. It is a high-pressure environment.
So if you are just leaving your stuff in temporary storage and hoping for the best, you're playing with fire.
Absolutely. You are ticking down a clock that ends in a severe penalty. The strategic value of temporary storage is just to buy you a few weeks to finalize your game plan without paying a single cent in duties yet.
Okay, so let's say we are smart. We have our game plan. We aren't staying in the waiting room. We move the goods into the Zolliger, Stage B, the customs warehouse proper. What actually changes legally at that specific moment?
Everything changes. Once you declare the goods for the customs warehousing procedure, that 90-day clock we just talked about, it vanishes
It just goes away.
completely. You have entered a regime of indefinite suspension.
Indefinite. So, I mean, theoretically, I could leave a pallet of equipment there for 5 years.
As long as the goods don't physically expire and you keep paying the commercial rent to the warehouse operator, yes.
That's incredible.
And during those 5 years, whether it is 5 days or 5 decades, you pay 0 import duty and 0 VAT to the German state.
Let's run the numbers on that, just to ground it for you listening.
Yeah.
Say I have a container of high-tech machinery worth €500,000. Duty is what, maybe 4%?
Depending on the exact classification, yeah, let's say 4%.
Good,
Plus
fair.
the really big one, the 19% import VAT in Germany.
Okay, so do the napkin math here. That's €20,000 in duty and roughly 95,000 in VAT. That is €115,000 in cash I have to wire to the customs office just to get the goods through the gate if I do it the normal way.
Correct. It's a massive hit. But if you use a customs warehouse, you keep that 115,000 euros sitting right in your bank account.
Which means I can use it for something else.
Yes. You can use it for marketing, for payroll, for R&D. You only pay that tax when you actually find a buyer and decide to physically remove the goods from the warehouse.
It turns a massive fixed upfront cost into a variable cost.
Precisely. It perfectly aligns your tax outflows with your revenue inflows.
Right.
For a business operating on thin margins or tight capital, that isn't just a nice feature to have. It is an absolute survival mechanism.
But there's no free lunch.
Right.
The government isn't just doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. What is the actual price of this suspension?
Transparency. Total brutal transparency.
Oh, so.
Well, the source material emphasizes that a customs warehouse requires strict inventory records. Now, that sounds mild, like basic housekeeping.
Sure, cut your boxes.
Right. But in practice, it means your physical stock on the shelf and your digital records in the system must match perfectly at all times, down to the single unit.
So if the customs audit team shows up, and I assume they do,
They absolutely will.
and your computer system says you have 1,000 units, but the shelf only has 999.
You are in a world of trouble.
Really? Over 1 unit.
Yes. That missing unit is legally considered to be unlawfully removed from customs supervision.
Ouch.
Yeah. You owe the tax on it immediately, plus a fine. And worse, you've just flagged your entire operation for much deeper scrutiny going forward. You are effectively trading financial freedom for intense administrative discipline.
So you need to run a very tight ship. You can't just toss things in a corner and forget about them until a buyer calls.
No, the paperwork has to be flawless.
Okay, now let's look at the operational side of things. The source case study mentions a split strategy. We aren't just storing goods forever, we are distributing them. We have 2 destinations here, the European Union and Ukraine. Let's tackle the EU side first.
This brings us to stage C and D, the just-in-time model. I want you to imagine your warehouse floor is painted in 2 different colors.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
One side is the customs warehouse zone. That's for your non-union goods, the stuff that legally isn't there yet. The other side is the regular warehouse, the free circulation zone. That's for union goods.
And the goal here is to keep things on the non-union side for as long as humanly possible.
Exactly. Let's say a customer in Berlin calls and orders 10 units of your equipment.
Okay.
You don't clear the whole container. You literally just take 10 units across the painted line. You file a customs declaration for just those 10. You pay the duty and VAT on just those 10, and you ship them to Berlin.
It's basically a la carte customs clearance.
Yes. You pay piece by piece. Instead of paying for the whole buffet when you walk in the door, you pay for every plate individually as you eat it.
That is a brilliant way to handle it for cash flow. But it gets more complex, and this is where the source material gets really fascinating when we look at the second destination, Ukraine.
The Ukraine connection is where the pure genius of this system really shines through.
This was the part that stood out to me the most. Why route goods for Ukraine through Germany at all? Why not just put them on a ship from China straight to Odessa or route them directly overland?
Stability, mostly. And consolidation of your supply chain. If you are a global supplier, you might not have enough consistent demand in Ukraine to fill a whole shipping container every single week.
Right, it's a smaller market piece.
But you definitely have that volume for Europe as a whole, so you ship one massive consolidated container to Germany, you break the bulk there, and you feed the Ukrainian market as needed from your central hub.
Okay, I see the logistics logic. But here is the trap I see from a tax perspective. If I bring goods into Germany, pay the 19% German VAT and the EU duties, and then put them on a truck to Ukraine.
You have engaged in what the logistics industry calls double work.
Yeah, you paid to enter the EU club, only to immediately leave it.
Exactly. You can try to claim that VAT back later as an export, but good luck. It takes time, there's mountains of paperwork, and it creates a massive liquidity drag on your business. You are essentially lending money to the German government for absolutely no reason.
So how does the customs warehouse solve this stagey problem?
Because the goods sitting in the customs warehouse never legally entered the European Union. They're still designated as non-union goods.
Right.
So when you are ready to ship a pallet to Kyiv, you don't export them because legally they were never imported in the first place.
That is wild to think about.
It is. Instead, you move them under a very specific transit procedure.
Ah, this is the T1 document the notes kept referring to.
Right, the T1, it's a transit customs document. Essentially, it says to the European authorities, I promise to move these goods from point A, which is the warehouse in Germany, to point B, the Ukrainian border, without selling them or consuming them anywhere in between.
But you need a guarantee for that, don't you? The government isn't just going to take your word for it.
You definitely do. You have to put up a financial guarantee, usually through a broker, that covers the potential taxes if the goods were to mysteriously fall off the back of the truck somewhere in Poland.
Right, to prevent black market smuggling.
Exactly. But you don't actually pay the taxes up front, you just secure the risk with a bond.
So the truck just drives all the way across Europe, effectively invisible to the taxman.
In a practical sense, yes. The goods just glide right through the EU tax net. The final import duty and the final VAT are only paid when they physically arrive in Ukraine to the Ukrainian customs authorities.
Wow.
You have completely bypassed the German tax system for goods that were never meant for the German market anyway.
That seems like a massive competitive advantage. If your competitor is doing it the old way, paying German VAT, tying up their cash, waiting 6 months for a refund, and you aren't paying it at all, you could price your goods way more aggressively.
Or simply grow your business faster because your capital isn't tied up in bureaucratic holding patterns. It minimizes the administrative burden and it absolutely maximizes your cash flow.
Okay, we've painted a pretty rosy picture here. It sounds like a magic money machine if you do it right. But the source material includes a pretty heavy section on risks.
Oh, there are risks.
And honestly, reading through these, some of them will look like they could just outright bankrupt a company if you aren't careful.
They absolutely can. This whole system is fragile. It relies entirely on data accuracy. The biggest villain here, hands down, is the HS code, the commodity code.
We touched on this briefly earlier, but break it down for us. Why is a single wrong code such a massive disaster?
Because the code dictates your duty rate. Let's say you are importing screws. If you classify them as general steel fasteners, the duty might be 0% or maybe 2%.
Seems reasonable.
When if customs does an audit and decides those aren't general fasteners, they are actually specialized aircraft parts or maybe automotive components, the duty could jump to 8 or 10%.
Okay, but if I've been doing that for years...
If you've been underpaying for 3 years because of a wrong code, they don't just correct it for the next shipment.
Oh, no.
They will send you a bill for the difference going back all 3 years.
On every single shipment.
Every single one, plus interest, plus penalties. It can wipe out years of profit overnight. And in a customs warehouse environment, because you are under constant supervision, these discrepancies get caught. You can't just hide in the volume.
That is terrifying.
It is a huge liability if you don't know exactly what you're doing.
The other risk mentioned in the deep dive sources is planning failures, specifically regarding that split we talked about between the EU stock and the Ukraine stock.
Yeah, this goes back to the concept of once you ring the bell, you can't unring it.
Right.
If you accidentally release goods into free circulation in Germany, meaning you cross that painted line and pay the tax, and then realize the next day, oh, wait, these 10 pallets were actually supposed to go to Ukraine, you are in a really bad spot.
You can't just put them back across the line into the warehouse and ask for a refund.
Not easily at all. You've fundamentally changed their legal status. Now they are union goods. To get your money back, you have to process a formal export, apply for a VT refund, prove to the government the goods actually left the territory.
You've created the exact administrative nightmare you built the warehouse to avoid.
Exactly. You defeated the whole purpose.
So you need to know the destination before you pull the trigger on the customs release.
You need what the logistics industry calls master data alignment. The source material actually recommends designing your operations for 3 distinct scenarios.
Walk me through those 3 scenarios.
Scenario A is a pure EU sale. You know the duty rate, you know the VAT, you have the release process completely automated for your German or French clients.
Simple enough.
Right. Scenario B is pure transit to Ukraine. You have your T1 guarantee ready to go. You have the transit corridor mapped out, no EU taxes touched.
And scenario C?
Scenario C is the messy reality of daily business. Mixed shipments.
Mixed shipments?
Yeah.
Meaning on the same truck?
Exactly. A single truck leaving your warehouse with 5 pallets for a German client and 5 pallets for a Ukrainian client.
Can you even do that legally? Physically, they're sitting in the exact same trailer.
You can, but think about the paperwork involved. Half the truck is union goods, meaning the tax is paid. The other half is non-union goods traveling under a T1 transit bond.
That sounds like a recipe for a border delay.
It is. If the driver hands the wrong stack of paperwork to the customs officer at the Polish border, the entire truck stops.
And a stopped truck is burning money every single hour.
Exactly. This is why the expert advice in these sources is all about centralized accounting. You cannot have your logistics team doing one thing on the warehouse floor and your finance team doing another in the office.
They have to be in perfect sync.
The inventory management system in the warehouse needs to be the single source of truth for the tax status of every individual item.
It sounds to me like the role of a traditional warehouse manager has to completely evolve for this to work. They aren't just managing forklift drivers and moving boxes anymore. They are actively managing tax liability.
Spot on. In a setup like this, your warehouse manager is effectively a junior tax compliance officer.
Wow.
If they don't understand exactly why scan-in and scan-out discipline matters on a financial level, the whole structure just collapses.
There is one final risk the text mentions, which I actually found quite refreshing. The economic risk. Basically asking the question, is it even worth it?
Right, because running a customs warehouse isn't free.
Not at all.
You have governmental authorization costs, specialized software costs, and likely much higher administrative fees from your logistics provider because they are taking on this complexity for you.
So if you are importing, say, low-value goods with a 0% duty rate to begin with,
Then why bother? If the duty is 0 and your inventory turnover is fast, meaning you sell the goods almost immediately after they arrive, the VAT hit to your cash flow is very short-lived.
so the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Exactly. The cost of compliance might end up being higher than the cost of capital you are saving. You shouldn't use a customs warehouse just because it sounds sophisticated or cool. You only do it when the math dictates it makes sense.
That's a great key takeaway. Don't build a Ferrari engine for a golf cart.
Or it's a perfect way to put it.
So zooming out a bit here, we've looked at the mechanics, the risks, the benefits.
Yeah.
What is the big picture here for someone listening who maybe doesn't run a global supply chain themselves, but relies on one every day?
The big picture is that flexibility is the new global currency. Supply chains used to be entirely about speed and cost. How fast can I get it there and how cheap can I do it?
Right, the Amazon Prime model of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, especially post-pandemic, they are about resilience and optionality. A customs warehouse gives a business the option to delay a critical financial decision. You can bring your goods all the way to Europe, stage them locally, and wait to see exactly where the demand materializes, whether it's in Paris or Berlin or Kyiv, before you commit your cash to a specific tax regime.
It effectively erases the physical borders for your inventory until the very last possible second.
It keeps your options open.
Right.
And in a volatile global market, having options is absolutely worth paying for.
It really challenges the way we traditionally think about geography and borders. We usually think of a border as a hard line on a map. You cross it, you show your passport, you pay your toll.
Right.
But this system creates a sort of gray zone deep inside the country where the normal rules are just suspended.
It's a legal fiction, but a very, very profitable one for global trade. It turns the rigid concrete walls of international trade into sliding doors.
I really want to leave you listening with a thought based on that exact idea. The next time you are driving down the highway and you pass one of those colossal windowless distribution centers, you know the ones.
They're everywhere now.
Right. Don't just see a boring building full of cardboard boxes and forklifts.
See a bank vault.
Exactly. Think of it as a bank vault where companies are storing not just physical products, but potential. They're leveraging time and legal status to keep the entire global economy moving without going broke in the process.
And keeping their vital cash flow breathing.
It really makes you wonder just how much of the stuff we buy every day sat quietly in that legal nowhere for months before it finally arrived in our front door.
I'd wager a very significant percentage of it. It truly is the invisible engine of modern trade.
A fascinating look into the hidden plumbing of the global economy. That's it for this deep dive into the complex world of customs warehousing and supply chain strategy. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.